Love, the great paradox, the sweet intoxication, the unbearable ache, the beautiful ruin of reason. If you are here, listening, watching, then you already know that love is no gentle thing. It is not a quiet companion that tiptoes politely into your life. No, love arrives like a storm, and when it leaves, it takes the roof with it. And for those who love with an anxious heart, a breakup is not just the end of a relationship, it is the collapse of an entire world. Yes, today, we are speaking of the anxious soul in heartbreak, and I ask you, have you ever seen a drowning man? Not one who thrashes violently, but one who is just beneath the surface, eyes wide, reaching, desperate for something, anything to hold on to. That, my dear listener, is what an anxious heart looks like after a breakup. They do not just mourn the loss of love, they fear it. They fear the silence, the emptiness, the space where someone used to be. And so they do what all anxious creatures do. They fight, they chase, they claw at doors that have already been shut. They breathe in nostalgia like it is oxygen and whisper to themselves, "If only I had been better. If only I had done more." But the tragedy of the anxious is this. They do not understand that love is not something they failed at. It is something that was simply never theirs to control. So let us begin, shall we? Let us step into the anxious mind, the frantic heart, and uncover why they suffer, why they beg, why they cannot let go, and most importantly, how they can be free. You see, an anxious attachment is not something that appears overnight. It is built, layer by layer, memory by memory, wound by wound. Perhaps they were the child who cried out for love and was met with silence. Perhaps they were the one who learned that affection was conditional, given in pieces, then taken away. Perhaps they were taught that love is something you earn, not something that is simply given. And so they learned a dangerous lesson. I must hold on tightly, or I will be left behind. And when an anxious heart falls in love, they do not love lightly. They love entirely. They pour themselves into the spaces of another person, weaving their identity so deeply into the relationship that when it ends, they do not know where they begin and where the other person ends. And that is why, dear listener, a breakup is not just pain to them, it is an obliteration. Now, if you have ever broken up with an anxious person, or if you are one yourself, then you will recognize this, the desperate need to fix it. Ah, yes. They become detectives of heartbreak, combing through every conversation, every text, every look exchanged, searching for the moment it all began to slip away. Perhaps if they apologize more, they can reverse it. Perhaps if they prove their worth, they can undo the damage. Perhaps if they just love harder, they can make their ex see sense. And so they begin their rituals of reclamation. They text. Oh, do they text? A casual message, a memory slipped into conversation, a desperate plea in disguise. Or worse, the avalanche. Message after message, spilling every thought, every feeling, hoping that words can hold back the flood. And when the texts do not work, they watch. They wait. They study their ex's online presence like a scholar decoding ancient texts. Why did they like that post? Why did they unfollow me? Why are they online but not responding? They become slaves to their ex's silence, misinterpreters of absence, prisoners to the unanswered question. And it is not madness. No, it is survival. Because to the anxious, love is oxygen, and the breakup, the suffocation. Now let me tell you a curious thing about time. It does not pass the same for all people. Ah, but you already know this, don't you? Think of the moments when you waited for something you dreaded, how time stretched, twisted, made you feel every second as if it were an hour. And now think of the moments you wished would never end, how they vanished in an instant. To the anxious heart, time after a breakup is cruel. 30 days apart, it will feel like an eternity. 30 days to the one who left? A blink. That is why no contact feels impossible for them. Because for the anxious, a day without their ex is not a day. It is loss, stretching infinitely in both directions. And so they break no contact, not because they lack discipline, but because they are drowning, and even the illusion of connection is better than nothing at all. Now let us speak of the cycle. Ah yes, the anxious and the avoidant. Two dancers in an endless tragic waltz. One chases, one runs, one reaches, one withdraws, and when the anxious finally lets go, only then does the avoidant turn around. Wait, they say. Where did you go? And so they return. For a moment. For a month. For just long enough to reignite the hope, only to retreat once more. On, off, on, off. Because here is the cruel truth. An anxious person will take back an avoidant not because they believe it will last, but because the absence is unbearable. And the avoidant, they will return not because they want commitment, but because they miss the warmth of being wanted. And so the cycle continues, both of them chasing ghosts, both of them pretending the ending will be different this time, but it never is. So now we come to the question, the one you have been waiting for. How do you stop the suffering? Ah, my dear listener, here is the secret. The anxious does not heal by finding another person to love them. They heal by learning to love themselves, by realizing that they are not unlovable, simply because one person could not stay, by understanding that closeness does not need to be begged for, it should be freely given, by seeing that love is not something to grip with desperation, but something to hold with ease. And the hardest truth of all? Sometimes, the greatest act of love is letting go, not because you do not care, not because you have given up, but because you finally understand that real love does not require suffering. So to you, yes, you, the one still watching, listening, hoping, I leave you with this. Step back, let them go, choose peace over panic, because when you finally let go of the need to be chosen, you will realize you were always enough. And that, dear listener, is the beginning of real love. Now, if you have found truth in these words, stay, subscribe, because there is much more to uncover about love, loss, and the quiet resilience of the human heart. Until next time, stay wise, stay kind, and above all, stay free.
If you believe this video might help someone dear to you, share it with them. A small gesture on your part could mean the world to a friend in need.